All right. Welcome to this Parable from the Pit Warrior Week podcast. My guest this week, a very special guest, my friend, my amigo, and a long friend, Demian.
It's good to be here, Sam.
Ah, yes. All right, Demian, welcome to the show. We're gonna talk. We have a lot to talk about, but I wanna kind of go back and you came in a Warrior Week 49.
That's right.
49. Fuck yeah, got a good memory. So 49. A one-of-kind fucking Warrior Week. I remember that. Talk to me about what and where the message of Warrior kind of started resonating with you. Like, took something inside of your heart and started shaking something and said, you know what? This is something that I have to discover.
Like, specifically what led me to Warrior Week?
Kind of week.
Yeah. Well, I've done a lot of training in my life, transformational training. I've been a senior head coach at places like Landmark Education, the Forum. I've studied with spiritual teachers and martial arts masters, and I'm at some fundamental level, I'm a seeker. I'm always looking to how can I grow, how can I improve. But I also got to the point where here I was, and what I'm going to call Warrior Classic, meaning married, with children, entrepreneur, and the work I had been doing in the world wasn't working. And I know it wasn't working because my wife looked at me and said, whatever the fuck you're doing, it's not working. You have to do something that breaks up and shifts and changes the trajectory, the vector and the paradigm in which you're currently operating, because I don't fucking like this man. And it was in these conversations, in these collisions, in these arguments where it became clear to me that something had to shift, something different needed to change. And I think that one of the things that had also happened to me, which again, my wife articulated very well, is you coach everybody. Who the fuck coaches you? And it was true. If you looked at my life, like a large portion, for 20 plus hours a week free, I was coaching hundreds and ultimately it amounted to thousands of other people to have breakthroughs in their own life. But somehow or another, I wasn't able to receive coaching or listen to coaching. And a lot of it came down to that I had this innate feeling that, they don't really get me. Like, no offense to this great woman right here is trying to coach me, but she doesn't get me. She doesn't feel me. And no offense to, this guy over here, he's not married and doesn't have kids. He doesn't understand what's going on with me right now. And it was really that shift into married, kids, entrepreneur, stress, pressure, and how do I not fall back into these old paradigms? Because I'd given up partying, I'd given up drinking. I was, I'm a type 2 diabetic, so I'm really managing and watching what I ingest and what I eat. But I found myself like gorging on sugar.
Yeah.
I found myself, sneaking a drink here or there. I found myself sneaking a joint here or there. The self-anesthetizing, like trying to calm the mind, and my sexual appetite disappeared. My sexual relationship with my wife had pretty much fizzled out, and we were still not quite newlyweds, but we'd only been married 3.5 years, and now we had 2 kids. So I saw a video.
Yeah.
On Facebook, and the video, which is one of the ones that I guess Jeremy had made, with Garrett and you and others, and I'm looking at this world of men under kind of extreme challenges or circumstances, being called to rise to become and to remember that you're a fucking king.
Yeah.
That was the occurring. Like, I was like, what is this? And I looked at it and I looked at it and I looked at it. And I'll never forget, we were sitting at a sushi dinner,
Yeah.
and my wife looked up at me and she said, "So what are you going to do?" And I said, um, "Well, I don't know, but I found this thing called Wake Up Warrior," and she went, "That's it." Now, my wife is an intuitive, by the
Okay.
way.
Okay.
So she's a spiritual teacher of women,
Got it.
specifically. She is an intuitive.
That's it.
And she just literally went, "That's it." And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I gotta no, that's it." I was like, "Okay, well, I'll take a look." And she goes, "No, sign up right now." I'm like, "Well, I don't know. There's this Facebook feed. There's a link here." And then I sat at the table for like 45 minutes trying to access. And I literally looked up at my wife, Brooke, and I said, "They have to be doing this on purpose. There is no fucking way that someone would make it this difficult to get through to them unless they were doing it on purpose." And then I went, "Oh, this is the first test." And then all of a sudden, I got through to you.
Uh-huh.
It's like, click, click, click. And it's like, and all of a sudden this text came in and it was from you. And it's like, "Hey, this is Sam, I'll reach out to you in a minute." I'm like, "What?" And then all of a sudden I had this interaction with you. And then we ended up on the phone together. I guess you could call it my interview.
Yeah.
And you told me that, that the Warrior 49 was basically closed,
Yeah.
and that you guys weren't going to do it for a little while, but you said, "Tell me what's going on with you," and I think I very openly,
Yes, you did.
authentically shared.
Yeah.
And then you went, "Wow, fuck no, you need it right now," and you were right. I did. I needed it right, and I literally, I'm sitting here, and because I can authentically say that in periods of time in my life, something has shown up that has saved my life, saved it from whatever pit/cliff I was literally about to drive off of and into. I credit Landmark Education with having done that for me. And I credit martial arts in my early life. As a matter of fact, March 11th today is the anniversary of the death of my mother, who got killed in a brutal car wreck in the middle of a terrible divorce with a man who desperately back then needed Warrior. Right? So it's interesting that I'm here on this date, March 11th. It's also interesting that today is the day that the U.S. just shut down travel to the world because of this virus, which is a whole other conversation. But martial arts saved my life when my mother got killed and my home burnt down and all this crazy shit happened in a couple week period. And then my creativity always kept me going in life. But then at a critical junction in my life, Landmark Education showed up. And then at a super, the most critical junction in my life, and again, married, 2 little baby boys, a queen, and an entrepreneur, then Warrior showed up. And it literally radically altered who I am as a human being and as a man, and brought me here to you.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful story. Yeah, I remember the interview, and literally there were too many people in 49. It's just there was too many people, and I think I specifically remember told you, it was like, "Hey man, if we're decided you're gonna come in, and it seems that shit needs to happen right away, fuck it. I guess somebody else to sit on somebody else's lap on the bus, because if that's what it takes for you to come in, that's what it takes." And I think somebody did sit on somebody else's lap. But we were, I think, I don't know, 20 or 19 or something.
We started like 24 guys, and then one
started
guy
dropping.
broke his leg
Mm-hmm.
in Australia.
Yes.
A couple other guys, just started dropping out because that's part of the process.
But I specifically remember Warrior Week 49, and what I remember mainly about Warrior Week 49 is fundamentally the video that was created after that, and what was said during that video, which was extremely relevant. It was a common pain among all of us, and it went back, and it started like there was a link in that So first of all, none of this shit is script out. Like,
Yeah.
it just, and I don't know why that thing came out because not that I don't know, it's just destinated. Like, it was destinated to be said because all of us related to that 7-year-old kid inside of us. Like, the story of the 7-year-old kid truly, truly started living in Warrior Week 49 because for so many other events that we had after that, which was what we call the Return of the King, specifically the video of 49 was played in order to lead him into the experience of the inner child. That's something we've created as part of an evolution. And that speech led to that, and it led for hundreds of guys post Warrior Week 49. And that was very relevant to me. I know it was relevant to you, and I specifically recall it was very relevant to Jeremy and a few other. Jeremy was Jeremy, myself, and Garrett was just kind of like grew Warrior together, and Jeremy chose to go through Warrior Week experience as a humble student for himself, and it was a piece of himself that he found in there that, he wanted it for so many years, and it was directly linked to that 7-year-old. And then I'm just putting pieces of together, right? I'm putting the speech together. I'm putting the letter that you wrote from Sparta to your two boys that became a monument in such that I asked you to laminate it because it was so beautifully written. It was so. In fact, I'm gonna go rip it off from the wall and have you here read it because I do want to document it. It was so beautifully written, you've taken the you've taken the ink, the pen, and the ink inside of that pen. It was truly like the essence of love that was writing that, and it was true because it was true to every father. It wasn't just like when I was reading the letter. When you were reading, I was hearing it. I wasn't hearing your writing. It was a universal message, right? So again, that
Yes.
piece, and I'm putting it again together. Your mom passed away today, so many years back.
Yep.
And I know how close you were to your mom because specifically what I remember is 3 years after when you went on the stage and there's like thousands of guys in black polos and you're giving your speech, which was fundamental. It was beautiful speech. But the most beautiful piece of that, the biggest takeaway I had, you said a bunch of stuff that was cool, but the biggest takeaway that like sticks was the story of you in the field with your mom, and you have the camera in your hand and you're taking these pictures, and it was like a first time, and then your mom kind of stops you and says, it's not the camera, it's who's behind the camera, right? And that literally like put the art inside of your heart, right? The desire to be an artist, and you went after that, right? We're
Yeah.
going to talk about your career as an artist. Both inside of the audio, video, film industry, so many industry, the books that you've written, the people that you've been with, so many people that you have impacted and you helped. So I'm putting all the pieces together, and all those pieces come back to that little boy in the field, right? The piece come back to my little boy in war zone, Jeremy's, homeschooled 7-year-old, Larod's 7-year-old in Bronx, and all these kids that were like kind of like old friends back in the days. And 49 brought all these old souls back together and says, here's a common playground you guys can play again.
Yeah.
So it was special, right? So to the audience listening, this may sound like a fairy tale, but it wasn't a fairy tale. This is
No,
like
it was very real.
Warrior Week Parables from the Pit is not a fucking fairy tale. It's a true story of men. This thing goes deeper than what you may see on the surface. Lots of successful guys like yourself, like entrepreneurs that come in. But that doesn't mean there's no pain. That doesn't mean there's no pain. And you truly don't know another man if you don't know his pain. And so the minute you shared your story on your interview, that was the time that you chose to be absolutely real and pure because, again, you were led there. And your wife's intuition had to do anything. That was the enabler. Imagine if your wife wouldn't push for it.
Oh yeah, she pushed.
This could have been another thing. You've seen so many other things in this industry, right?
I have, yeah.
But then it was her conviction that put you on this path.
Her conviction and my, fundamental, I could call it a desire, but it was beyond desire. Like my commitment to shift the vector of my life. And that's what I think one of the things that's amazing about Warrior, because we sometimes when we talk about the martial stuff and moving into a quick conversation about being because I enjoy combat shooting.
Yes.
I might swing slightly liberal Democrat, but I am definitely like a hardcore gun shooter guy. So, and I have my sniper rifles. And what's really interesting about that is in the concept of vector or trajectory is that, just a millimeter off here at 100 yards is inches, an inch off in life at, long term, as a husband and a father, an entrepreneur is like, to me, the difference between hitting your target or losing everything. Losing your wife, losing your home, losing your children, losing your business. And it's not to say that I haven't had versions of that.
Yeah.
I think all men go through this. But I was committed to that. I did not want to lose what had become what I learned in Warrior, my fundamental why.
Yeah.
Like, why? Why will I go another inch when I've got nothing left inside?
Yeah.
And that became very, very clear to me. And so for me, a lot of what Warrior is about is putting me on target for what I'm committed to, helping align me right down to the nuances. And that's what the work of Warrior is about. And by the way, I am no expert in the work. I'm always challenged by the work. I'm challenged to do my stacks. I'm challenged to do core 4. I'm challenged to do the other work, but the challenge of it is like has a number of these things have now become like muscle memory to me, whereas before it was super difficult.
Yes.
But now it's like, no, I'm not going to wake up and not contribute to my wife and my children as like my primary first thing after I do my work. By the way, though, you did save me the other day on the shit and stack. If you're not stacking and you get through, you're near the end of the day and you still haven't done your stack, then the coaching for you is take your shit and do your stack, even if it gives you hemorrhoids.
It was pretty visual,
It's
wasn't
very
it?
visual, and I've been shitting and stacking since then.
a long hour sitting on the bathroom
Yeah.
for a 40-plus-year-old man, you increase your chance of having hemorrhoid.
Yes.
And you don't want to be that guy.
No, I don't want to be that guy.
In the audience, if you are that guy, like, okay, I get it. But they're all solution, but you don't want to be that fucking guy.
No.
So talk to me about your experience at Warrior Week. You come in and you come to this experience. Obviously, the 30-day build-up kind of sets up the tone and sets the frame. So I know there's been many level of transformation there. So you can talk to me about the build-up and then coming into the first night, going into the pit and talking about that experience.
Sure. Well, for one, there aren't a lot of things that scare me or make me like nervous, like genuinely nervous. I think the only things that really scare me right now are not being there for my wife and children in their moment of need.
Yes.
Like if I have a pervasive fear
Yes.
that kind of hangs around me, it's that one.
Which is your why?
Which is my why. Yeah. So separate from that, I hadn't felt this like sense of fear, trepidation, nervousness, like in a very long time.
Yeah.
And the 30-day lead up is not to be trifled with. When I look back at it, it was as difficult as Warrior Week itself, primarily from because I know the intention, and because you articulate the intention, get the fuck out. Like the intention of the 30 days is to convince you to get out so that I don't have to deal with you later. Like if you can't make it through that buildup, then there's no reason for you to be in Warrior Week to begin with. And I was really challenged in that 30 days. I mean, I got lividly pissed off, at you, at others, at myself. But in the process of doing things, and I think it really clicked for me in a moment of a release the rage, when we had to go into the black hoodie and the dark glasses in a dark place, and like, and kind of put yourself out there in releasing that deep well of anger and rage and shit that you've been holding on to. And I did it several times, and I was coached to do it one more time after I'd done it once. But the catharsis of it, the actual reconnecting to that sacred part of me started there. Coming to Warrior Week, getting all the gear ready, coming down, I know it's the breakdown, the build up, the bonding, and the brotherhood, if I remember it correctly. And so this breakdown part was at first very. Can I talk about all that?
Yeah, you can
I'm
talk
not-
about
yeah,
whatever
'cause
the fuck you want.
I don't want to give anything away, but that part where I was really challenged to let go of my ego, because during that process, the design function for me was fuck your ego. We're going to take it away from you right now because it does not serve you. And that was like my experience. And as my ego got stripped away more and more, and more layers of bullshit were removed, where I could get closer and closer to the core of who I am as a human being. Then, without going into the specifics of the evolutions, though, like I had this weird thing that happened to me. Like one of my greatest, like, I am claustrophobic. I hate being confined.
Yeah.
And one of my greatest fears is being buried alive. You picked me as the first motherfucker to do Invictus. The first guy. Because I was like, good. So at least if I can hear like 10 or 20 other guys do it, then I'll be okay.
Yeah.
No, I was the first guy out there, and I started doing it. And then you started hosing me with that water hose. And I got all this shit came up again. And then, but I made it through, which was remarkable. I was even like, it was one of those, because now I start to understand the concept of the buildup, because suddenly there was this this piece of me that suddenly started to rise. Like, no, you're a fucking warrior. And then moving from that, I was immediately taken to a pit where I had to dig my own grave and then lay in it. And then I was buried. And then not only was I buried, but I had the German Shepherd, like clawing at me and spitting, barking in my face. Thank God he had the muzzle on.
He's at home right now with my two kids.
Is he? God bless him. Sweet dog. not a sweet dog for you, I'm sure. But then that was happening.
Yes.
And I was while that was happening, I started dealing with the Holocaust. Because 9 of my grandfather's brothers and sisters were murdered during the Holocaust. There was only 3 that escaped and 2 that survived. My grandfather and his one last surviving sister. So all that kind of memory that I have within me viscerally from that time, and I've shared about my grandfather, was coming up for me, and I was being buried, and the German Shepherd was in my face, and then you were placing men over me, stacking man on top of man, until I had like 6 or 8 guys on top of me while I was buried. And it was fascinating to me because I had to disassociate from anything I knew myself to be, to find something deeper than whoever I was in that moment, because who I was in that moment could not survive this ordeal. The me I knew myself to be had to either die, disappear, or run screaming for the hills. It was like, these were like the kind of the choices. And even though maybe if I didn't have 6 or 8 guys, I don't remember how many, on top of me, I would have got up and run, but I
Maybe,
couldn't.
yeah.
I might have. I don't know. Thank God I couldn't. But in that moment, something new came alive inside me.
Yeah.
Something new, and my why, who I really am at the core, and what really matters when you strip everything else away, started to emerge, and I started to scream my wife's name and my children's name and my as yet not born into this world daughter's name, because
Yes.
we want the daughter, we have the sons, um, and my life changed in that moment. From then on, um, no matter what the challenge was in Warrior, no matter how hard it is, and many a time another man had to help me.
Yeah.
There was
So
no.
go back to that
Yeah,
moment.
yeah,
You're buried. You got the sixth man.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing is coming. The whole thing is happening there, right? You're claustrophobic. You don't
Yeah.
like that.
I hate that.
You go to a reference of Holocaust and how nine of the member of your families have been piled up and stacked up, and the representation of those men, the bodies of those, the member of your, like everything is coming to. So one specific question for you:
Yeah.
Where was your ego at that time?
Well,
Nowhere to be found.
nowhere to be found.
And
Yeah.
that let me link
gone.
that let me link that to 10 years back. 10 years prior to this exact moment that you were experiencing, I went to India as part of I was working for oil and gas. My company was subcontracted by Oil India. So I went to India and I was there for 4 or 5 days. So one of the days I wake up and I go to the park next to the hotel. I'm walking around. I sit on a bench. There's a man that come in and suddenly we're hearing all these laughter. I turn around, look at the guy and say, what is this laugh coming from? He goes, there's a group of people doing the laugh meditation, the laugh therapy. I look around, there's a guru or somebody in the middle, and there's like over 100 people around him, and everybody's laughing. So I kind of go and I kind of participate, and I started laughing too, and it's just contagious. So I did the laugh thing, and after 15 minutes or so, it's over. People that's what they do. They do that and they go to work, and they started going. And this old man, the guru in the middle, was there. I'm like, fuck. Okay, I traveled all the way here. Like, I haven't really met any fucking gurus. I heard about all these gurus and this. Fucking, let me go ask a question. And I always had this thing about like ego. Like, I couldn't understand what the fuck the ego is. So everybody leaves. Ironically, it's not like this guy was like super popular or fucking Brad Pitt and you would line up and fucking talk to him. Everybody leaves as if, he's just a regular guy. And there's a moment, my moment. I go to the guy. I'm like, okay, I have a question for you. I'm, from the U.S., this and that. And he's like, welcome, this. And so I have, like, so what is ego? So he goes, let me tell you a story. I go, okay. So start telling me a story about this couple that were part of a wedding, right? There was this wedding. And there was this big Indian wedding that was happening. You know how it is, like magical weddings. And there's a guy that is walking outside of the wedding building. And suddenly, for some reason, he gets pulled into the wedding. And he has this reputation that he's, a brother-in-law or some fucking family member of the bride's side. And that he's very popular. He's an actor. He's rich. So there's a reputation that starts circulating. And then the other side start hearing about this, and there's a reputation of this man that starts circulating throughout the wedding in such that they want him now to come and kind of like, introduce himself on the stage and talk and talk and talk. And so he's benefiting from all this reputation all around. And then he's asked to come on the stage. Like, now everybody's anticipating him to come on the stage. And they keep calling him, they keep calling him. He's nowhere to be found. So he told me that's your ego. That it doesn't exist. It's not there. It's a reputation that gets built up and it gets circulated. When you need it, when you need to call upon it, it's not there. Because it never was.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, that's a pretty cool story, right? So I live with the story, but it's decade after when you're talking about this.
Yes.
That is coming into play. And where was the ego? It was the guy at the wedding.
There's the guy at the wedding. It's not there.
He was never there.
It was never there.
So whatever this thing ego is or wasn't, in that moment, you were stripped free from a story of who you were, and you were like synced into who you truly are.
Yeah.
Right. And then, so there's two layers into this. This is really important to talk about this because we're going to go deep on this because you are deep. And, if this is too deep with you, well, fuck, just let's go deeper. Right. That's what we do here. And it's pretty fucked up, but that's the truth. So there's the why, which is very clear. Your why is directly your biggest fear. You already mentioned this. Your biggest fear is circulating around your head, circulating around my head. Biggest fear is to lose our family. And that becomes our why. But that is not necessarily our purpose.
No.
And so this is the big difference, right? Men go around the globe looking for a purpose, but they haven't found their why yet. You can't really live your purpose if you haven't found your why. And once you found your why, you're on a quest for a purpose which is bigger impact. Your why will impact your family and your children.
Absolutely.
But you're not here just to impact them.
No.
And that's the problem with men today. From men that try all these experiences to find purpose, they haven't truly found the why. So they think they found the purpose. They go around a couple of years and say, oh, that wasn't it. There's got to be something else. And there's this constant confusion between the why and the purpose that it's the same thing. What can you tell us about that from your own experience?
Well, what's really interesting is that for many years, I related to myself as a filmmaker, film director,
Storyteller, film
storyteller. This is what I do.
Do.
Okay, this is who I am.
Yes.
This is what I am. This is what gives me purpose. This is what fuels or had fueled my non-existent but very prominent ego. That was it. But I ended up writing a book, Discover the Gift, and making a movie of the same title. That was really, when I look at it, it was me searching for my why. Like when it's that clear to me now. I thought I was on purpose to make a profound difference on the planet, to transform humanity, and I sat with the gurus and the Dalai Lamas and, the Jack Canfields and the, Michael Beckwiths and the Marianne Williamsons and the superstars and the non-superstars, and really, dived into esoteric conversations about life and the discovery that everything boils down to love and all that, except it still wasn't my why. And I hadn't discovered my why yet. And that is true. And even in finally, and truly, I could tell you that my wife, chose me, and then I got the privilege of choosing her, right? And then,
because she has the intuition.
Because she has the intuition. She knew. She saw me. She said, "That's my husband." She's like, "You looked at me and you were like, duh." Took you 6 months to figure it out, and maybe not. It did, but I don't think so, because I was like, yes. The question I think any man asks is this not just the woman I can be with, but is this the mother of my children? Is this the direction I want my life to go in? And the answers for me were, quickly a yes with her. And but then it was in Warrior that I discovered truly my why, rather than my wife and my children being something important to me and something I wanted to do as a man, and see my father hold his grandson in his arms, and I have, succeeded in fulfilling on my promise to my dying grandfather that, the Lichtenstein name would live on, and all that, whatever that was. Yeah, it has its importance, but truly what it came down to is that now that I've discovered my why, what I am truly up to, the purpose that I actually see, the opportunity that I see that I have to make a difference on the planet and to create something with the skills that I have that are unique. That very few people in the world have the combination of skills that I have. which is motion picture and television and video gaming and virtual reality and augmented reality and artificial intelligence and these skill sets that I have to create something that can and I believe will make a difference in the world and to help transform and enlighten and especially have an enormous impact on young men. Like if I've focused my purpose somewhere is to take what young men love to do already, which is play video games, engage in storytelling, create worlds and do all this and infuse it with the um, the the conversation of transformation, what's possible, and the conversation that is ingrained in me now from the warrior's way. Like if I had these skill sets earlier in life, not that I would shift anything to give up what I have now, but had I had them earlier in life, there would have been so much less pain and suffering. Like my children now stand and will put their their fist to their chest and say, I am a warrior and I live by a code.
Mm-hmm.
They now do that. And before that, there was no code other than maybe some ethical world I lived in where I'm not going to be one of those guys. I'm going to be one of the good guys, in the movie world.
Yes, yes.
Kind of a la what's going on with Harvey Weinstein and now going to prison for 23 years because he never got to deal with those issues.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So they manifested. When we as men don't handle that shit,
Mm-hmm.
it comes out as nasty shit in some other place.
100%.
Right? So
I'm sitting here tonight, and tonight I'm sitting between this conversation of your why and the purpose and what you just shared here. I believe honestly from the bottom of my heart, and again, like this just coming purely from the heart of God through me, through that the puzzle is complete, but you haven't looked at it. And the puzzle is the following: the mysterious death of your mom, which you still don't have any answers to, which led to a journey. The energy that's chosen you through your wife, because let's be honest, it's very rare for a dude to be chosen, unless you're fucking, you might have been very good looking then, but Brad Pitt right now, you're still a very good looking guy. But the point is this: it's rare for a man to be chosen.
Yeah.
You have the wisdom. You've seen thousands and thousands to be truly chosen. I'm not talking about good looking guy and women like hits on. I'm talking about chosen. So the mysterious death of your mom, the energy that the feminine energy that came back and chose you, and the book that you've written, right? The script that you've put on this earth, which in the presence of this conversation, you mentioned that was written without finding the why. Today you have the why. And so the piece of the puzzle is put together. Somewhere between these three things, that's like the triangle of Bermuda. There's an impact that is demanded from you. And it may not be through the big projects.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the book has become alive once again. I wonder what you will discover if you read your own book tonight with this in mind and what you will see. Because you know how it is. You read books and we evolve and we see different things, different perspective. What's the message hidden in that book written by you that reveals, now that you have your why, the mysterious death of your mom and how she's overseas many of these years, and somehow, somewhere, this female energy came back and chosen you. And the strong intuition of this woman that brought you to warrior, and warrior just being a sense of awareness. Let's just call it that. Forget like what it's just a journey. It's just a stop that you had to do to become aware. You met some dudes and they had some conversation. They had to fucking collide with you, slap the fuck out of the ego that you recognize never existed. The guy is a fucking wedding that was never invited. But I wonder what that says, because there is a struggle to just figure out like how do I impact, right? That's what keeps you at night from going to bed is how do I impact, how do I make a difference? And first, how do I make a difference at home? Because we all have our problems right now at home, right?
Yeah.
So like, how do I manage that? What are the well, financial, whatever, like those are the priority at home. But then above and beyond, what's next? So I've seen you struggling on the bigger projects and world impactful projects. And not too many men can touch those projects because they don't have the skills that you have, right? To be able to play with that world, but at the same time find out what am I doing in my own house today? Because you are having impact on your wife and your kids, and there's more to do. But how can I radiate from there? The diamond isn't at home, and like, how can I let that shine? So I think it's something about that fucking book. It wasn't written to just be put in a fucking shelf, or it wasn't written because it was a phase of your life that you went through. And the people that you met throughout the process, the people that you just named, like, bro, these are fucking light workers. These are not just fucking like popular people. These are people that are fucking instruments and channels, and you kind of like brought all the fucking. It's like bringing all the fucking the viaducts of the town. Everything comes in, all the tunnels comes in, and everything is pouring the water into one fucking area. I have a feeling that's what that book did,
Yeah. And the movie.
and the movie.
Yeah. And the
Why
movie.
would you make a movie out of like? Ask yourself this question: Why not just stop at the book? Why you went with the movie?
I went with the movie because I knew that well, one, I self-identified as a filmmaker,
Yeah.
not a book author. I opted to start with the movie, and it became clear and very evident that there needed to be a book written. It also, at that time, I was also coming into a new realm of closure with my sister, who was another representation of the feminine, and my mother, and so we worked on that and we co-wrote that book together. Um, but the movie was one of the questions I had for myself is, how can I impact again the world, and how can I make a difference for people, and how can I deliver something that I know will be seen by millions, and it has been,
Mm-hmm.
and it continues to be seen. It's globally distributed on the Gaia network right now.
Yes.
And I have people contacting me all the time about the extraordinary difference it made in their life. But I'd like to tell one short story
Yes.
from the movie. So we were in a Sundance Film Festival, 2011. We were screening the movie at Sundance. There are a lot of famous, semi-famous people in the audience, and we screened the movie. The movie ended. I was in the Q&A, and in the middle of the Q&A, there was a loud bang because someone had abruptly stood up and knocked their chair over and had like slammed out the doors, like really kind of abrupt and loud, and burst of light, and they were gone. Momentary interruption. And then I continued and answered the questions, received the applause. Thank you very much. And afterwards, I was hanging outside the theater on Main Street. It's pretty cold during that time at Sundance, and I heard this like loud clomping, clomp, 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 clomp. And I turned around and I saw this very large black man kind of hurtling towards me, about 6'5", probably about 300 pounds, with an intense expression on his face, and he's coming right for me. And I started backpedaling,
Yeah.
and I started to put my hands up because I didn't know what was happening. And then I saw his expression change as he got close to me, and I saw the tears streaming down his face. And he stopped me and he grabbed me by the arms and he's like, "What did you do to me? What did you do to me?" And I was like, "I don't know. What did I do?" And he said, Your movie. I was compelled. I walked out the door and I called my son, who I have not spoken to in 14 years. And I apologized to him for having been a terrible father and told him how much I loved him and how important he was to me and how much I wanted to be in his life. And he asked me what happened to me. And I told him I saw this movie and it's changed my life forever. And he's flying to Sundance tonight and I'm going to introduce you to him tomorrow. And I looked at this man and tears were streaming down my face. And I said, that is why I made this movie. I made it for you.
Beautiful story. So here's a question, right? Here's a question. You created the movie.
Yep.
For them.
Yep.
And you kind of know what did that for them.
Yes.
But now it's your mission to go find out what did it do to them. You created for them, but now you have to find out what did it do to them. You already have the evidence. 2011, 9 years later, millions impacted.
Yeah.
Like it's all coming together tonight.
Yeah. What did it do to them?
What did it do to them? And that may be an inquiry that goes out there. And there's so much thing that could come after that. We'll talk about that after the podcast. There's so many steps that come to that, and that's the journey. The journey continues. When you give me that book and that movie, I just knew that there was a bigger fucking purpose. And what I knew, it wasn't the fucking that you wrote it. It wasn't. It was one fucking symbol, like call it intuition, verified with your wife, whatever that is. It was one fucking symbol. It was that lotus flower and the color of it, which is the color of divine light as you start distinguishing. There is the bright light and then there's that color which comes from the higher soul. So it was that said, okay, why this? I just learned about that shit a year ago when I did all my certification with Master Code. I was like, okay, why this? So it's always been there, and tonight it's coming together. It's coming together because there's no other way to, why the fuck are we here talking about that?
Yeah, why?
This is a Warrior Week fucking podcast. We're talking about the lotus fucking light and the impact, because this is what happens at Warrior. This is what happens at Warrior. This is what happened to you at Warrior Week when you started reading that letter from Sparta.
Yeah.
And what I mean from Sparta, it was, we were put in a scenario where, you were writing a letter from this island called Sparta, the modern Sparta, and you told a story. I have the letter here. I want you to read it for the audience. So,
okay.
I don't have the ripped piece, but I have the laminated piece. So before we bring the podcast to closure, I want you to read this with your own voice, and truly, this, we're gonna end the podcast with this, and typically we end the podcast here with you sending a message for another man that's listening here, so that that resonates with him and he moves forward with what he needs to do. But I think this is a universal message that could go to all fathers.
Okay. I have a wave of emotion just holding this letter. A letter from Sparta, part 1. To my young sons, Romeo and Luke, from your father, Demian, the King of Kings. Love is the beginning, the middle, and the end. You only need to look into the eyes of your mother, my queen, to know this truth. There is a brotherhood of men here in Sparta, men who, like you, were once boys. These men are warrior kings. These men would give you their life if that was what was required. They do not hesitate in their swift action. They do not falter under the blows of chance. They do not cry out in fear. They scream their love for one another from the highest mountain and from the blackest pit. These men are warriors of love. They fight with every ounce of their souls for love. But make no mistake, my sons, the honor and the integrity of these men will never be broken. It is true that some of them may and will fall bloody on their own swords. That is a choice a man gets to make for himself. No tears will be shed for that man, no cups raised in his honor. He will simply disappear into the pit, never to return, never to be spoken of again. The honor and integrity of this brotherhood must always be held sacred. It is your Father's wish that you boys will both one day grow to be powerful men, warriors of love, to be welcomed into this sacred brotherhood, to become true kings of kings. Part 2. My sons, read your Father's words carefully. This gift is not yours to simply can't claim. You must earn your way into this brotherhood. You must train with all your heart. Give everything you have to give, and then when there is nothing left, you must dig deeper than ever before and give even more. You must dive to the bottom of the ocean and discover who you both truly are. All men carry within them both the darkness and the light. Learning how to embrace them both will give you a power that few men will ever attain. I can and do promise on the oath of the brotherhood that I will lead you up the mountain and teach you all I know, and yet, you, my sons, must choose this path as your own. Know this, no matter the path you choose, as your father, I will always love you. As your king, I command you to rise. Rise and rise again. For as the last stanza of Invictus declares, it matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. An eternity of love to you both, Romeo and Luke, my sons, my teachers, my greatest why, your father, the warrior king, the king of kings, Demian Lichtenstein, Warrior Week 49, 2018.
Beautiful. And this letter was written in, about 15, 20 minutes time frame. It wasn't, it just came from the heart, from the soul.
From the soul.
It's like, and it's become a monument, at least here at Warrior, and we have it laminated and printed in our headquarters, and many men come and read it. And many men get to refer to it. Every single father that's passed by this letter has connected with it. So I felt that this would be the essence of our conversation. We'll have you back on the podcast for much more.
Yeah, it was great.
Because this is just the beginning.
Yeah, because I like to show up here and cry on your microphone.
Yeah, it's very nice. But there's much more. There's much more we want to cover. We do want to cover so many years inside of the impact that you had as a trainer. I do want to cover that as your days in Landmark and the impact that you had. It is absolutely worth to tell the many stories that you carry there. I do also want to talk about the lessons inside of martial art and your military training. I most definitely want to talk about the impact and the influence you had in Hollywood and all the hard work that you've done to create businesses and motion pictures and artists and just creator of the creators, right? One of the creator of the creators inside of this industry. So there's so many much more to tell. But I also want to do a follow-up on what transcended tonight and the mission to the unknown with the book and the impact that Million had that you may not even be aware somehow, somewhere. So there's so much more room to be.
So much more.
There's so much more room to tell the stories. But for tonight, I do want to appreciate your time being on this podcast. Like, look, listen, man, this is not the most popular fucking podcast. We're not gonna claim that we're the most popular podcast, but we are impactful, And if we have an impact on one man, if that man is you, great. And if that man may be somebody in your network, an important man in your life, or whoever's listening to this, and somebody you think that would benefit from the courage that Demian demonstrated in this podcast, and as well as any words that might have resonated you. Maybe it's just a letter. The letter that is a universal fucking letter that pierces the heart of every single fucking father. It is your duty to forward this podcast to one single man inside of your life, and that's what we ask. Gentlemen, until then, I want to thank Demian. Demian, thanks for being on the show.
An honor.
Until the next show, take care of yourself and each other.